So an introduction, my project is the MedMaster, which is an all-purpose electronic pill bottle, and it's designed to help Parkinson's patients. So the main area of expertise here is the patients who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And some further applications of this, it could affect other patients with diseases that have like long-term, time-sensitive medications. So this is going to be more of your neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. They can have aspects of dementia, and this innovation is going to really help those. So just to give you some brief background, Parkinson's disease, it's a neurodegenerative disease, and it's mainly caused by a lack of dopamine. And this lack of dopamine is caused by the premature death of neurons in the substantia nigra of the brain. If you look up here, you can see there's a lack of pigmentation in the Parkinson's disease brain, whereas the normal one has a little bit more. That shows you there's a little bit more of the dopamine production going on. And dopamine is a very important neurotransmitter, and what it does, it helps control your movement. So patients who have Parkinson's, their cardinal symptoms, there's a very nice abbreviation for it. It's TRAP, and the first one is tremors. So they may have uncontrolled movements. The second one is rigidity, and this is where they may feel a little bit stiff. The third one is akinesia, and this makes it a little bit more difficult to start their movements and have control over that. And then the last one is posture and balance. They start to have maybe a stooped posture, or their gait may be a little bit different. So all of these different symptoms are things that if you have Parkinson's, they're going to be something that you're going to experience, and it's going to get progressively worse throughout your time. So the scope of impact of my innovation is there's about 1 million Americans who've been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and approximately 10 million of those worldwide. So if we're talking about the projected influence, the number of people who have this, along with their loved ones and any other future applications of this disease, it could reach around 60 million, which is a big deal in the healthcare industry. So I'm going to talk about what kind of problems that my innovation addresses. The first one is a decline in hand dexterity. So all of the symptoms that I mentioned before, they add up to make it much more difficult to use your hands and your fingers, and it gets progressively worse over time. Now, there is a treatment, it's called LSVT big therapy, and that's a major physical therapy component that Parkinson's patients go to, and it's supposed to help them accentuate their movements, and what this does is it's supposed to help with these symptoms. However, there was a study done, and it showed that one of the main symptoms that this big therapy doesn't address is the decline in hand dexterity, which can be very important when you're trying to take your pills. So what I noticed when I was at my internship, I was in the Parkinson's clinic a couple days, and patients, when they would show how they had their medication, they would take it out of their pocket, and they would have it in a very small, like hard to open little container. And like this would be difficult even for me to open, so I noticed that. And they would have some trouble with that, especially when they're nearing the end of their dose, when their symptoms are a lot worse, so it's a lot more difficult to open. Another issue that is addressed here is the cognitive impairment. So as you go on through Parkinson's disease, you may experience some difficulties with memory, and that can be really difficult for the patient and for their loved ones. So this is another area that is addressed with my innovation. The third one is the efficacy of medication. So carbidopa-levodopa is the medication that's used to treat Parkinson's disease, and it's a very time-sensitive medication, so it's important to take it at certain intervals throughout the day in order for it to have a positive effect on the patient. And this is something that can be a little difficult to do and manage around a patient's everyday schedule. So this is another thing that my innovation is going to address. Another aspect of the disease that it issues is the prescription refill process. This can sometimes be difficult with different pharmacies. You may be moving houses, your insurance changes, so this kind of streamlines that whole process. And it overall makes the patient experience much nicer. Some previous solutions to this, you would have a reminder app that may tell the patients to take their medication at a certain time, but again, with older patients, which is generally the people who are the target of these kind of diseases, this kind of technology can be a little hard to implement and use. Another thing is patient-physician consultations that can help with this kind of thing, and this is very difficult as well because Parkinson's is a very specific disease, and there's not very many neurologists and specialists who are able to cope with this. So often I would see patients in the Parkinson's clinic, and they would have driven like 3-4 hours to get there. So just scheduling appointments becomes a major issue because you have travel, maybe they're going to have to stay overnight. That's always a major concern. That's why these previous solutions have not been as successful. So some key features of my innovation. It has a push-button release of the medication. So this is to address the hand dexterity. So what it would do is all you would have to do is press the button and it would release the 1 pill a dose. And you wouldn't have to have any issues with fiddling with the top, that kind of thing. The second thing, it has a digital clock interface on the top, kind of like pictured above. And what this does is it counts down until the time of the next dose. So maybe they're not sure when they last took theirs and they're not sure when they need to take it next. So they can just pull it out of their pocket and see how many hours they have until the next one. Another thing it does is in the top right-hand corner of the screen, it's going to display when they need to get their prescription refilled next. So that's a very convenient thing. You wouldn't have to go to your phone, you wouldn't have to remember it, have your loved ones remember it, it's just there for you to see. And this relieves a lot of stress for the patient and their loved ones because the loved ones end up having to take the brunt of this responsibility because of the cognitive impairment that comes with the disease. Another thing is this automatically keeps track of how many times you open or push the button for the release of the medication. So it keeps track and it automatically notifies the physician of when they need to get a refill. Therefore, you don't have to really contact them. But what sets this apart from the other innovations is it comes with a software program. And I developed this with the help of a few of the computer science students at my school. And what the software program does is it creates a predictive dose schedule. So it kind of takes into factors like when the patient eats their meals, what times they wake up, when their symptoms are the most severe, and it creates like a tentative document for a physician to go off of rather than the physician having to sit there. And it can be kind of hard. I would sit in with patients and they would have trouble recalling when exactly they normally take their doses or when exactly they would get up, meal times. They'd be very vague and it'd be difficult for a physician to kind of work around that. So this technology is working to address that problem. In addition to that, if you had the tentative dose schedule, you would have these symptom indicator buttons on the pill bottle, and they would be like a red, yellow, and green. So they would go through like a 2-day trial run with the new dose schedule. And maybe around every 1 hour, every 2 hours, they would check in and they would press the button about how they feel. So the green button would be like, I don't really have any symptoms right now, I'm feeling pretty good. The yellow button would be, I have some minor symptoms, a little bit of discomfort, maybe a little trouble with everyday activities. And then the red would be, there's an extreme discomfort and I maybe need like a lot of assistance with everyday activities. So they're going to use this information and program it back into the dose program, and it should create a new tentative schedule. So the goal with this is to combine these different technologies and create a platform that is useful for the patient and the physician. And overall, it's going to personalize the patient's experience, and they're going to get a much better, easier to use dose schedule from this. And it should improve the efficacy of their medication. So they should experience less side effects. There'll be less of a wearing off period towards the end of their dose. Their symptoms tend to reappear, so this can help eliminate that a little farther, and they feel like they're more involved in the process. Also, I want to thank you guys again for listening.